Welcome back to Capitol Tonight, a statewide look at politics. I'm Tim Boyum. It is Wednesday and time for our advocates, a group of folks who make the living researching the topics that make headlines in politics. And tonight we focus on education, teachers specifically. The governor's budget adds 1,800 more teachers and gives them a 1% raise. However, a recent report shows North Carolina ranks 48th in teacher pay, and a reform bill wants to end teacher tenure. Joining me now to talk about the situation facing teachers and education in the state, Brian Lewis and Terry Stoops. Brian is the chief lobbyist and political director for the North Carolina Association of Educators, and Terry Stoops is the director of education studies at the conservative John Locke Foundation. Good to see you guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
So a couple things going on in education right now, and maybe more down the line. Brian, I'll start with you. There's some good and bad, it seems like, if you're in perspective historically with teachers in the state. So what's going through your head right now with some of these issues we just mentioned?
Well, we just ended our convention this past weekend. We had about 800 educators here in Raleigh. The big thing that's on their mind is that they are ranked 46th in teacher pay in the nation, 48th if you take the preliminary studies for this year. We have a budget that still cuts about $375 million from local school districts. Some of the good things we saw in the budget, 1,800 new teacher positions, but we are concerned that with the $375 million discretionary cut, we're not going to see many of those 1,800 teachers. And then we have about 3,400 teacher assistants, those teaching our children in K through 3, those very formative years. They are being cut in this budget. So we're hearing a lot of mixed news when we see the budget. Of course, there's legislation out there that is very concerning to educators in North Carolina.
Terry, let's start with the teacher pay. I know you've had issues with these rankings in the past. Do you still?
I do. I mean, these are put out by the National Education Association, the nation's largest teacher union, and they're a good estimate, but I think we need to keep in perspective that they are truly estimates. They're not reports of exactly what teacher pay is from state to state or what per pupil expenditure is from state to state. These are just based on statistical estimates. So, you know, I think we need to be careful when we start talking about these rankings, and we also need to be careful to consider that we have things like cost of living not taken into consideration and inflation not taken into consideration in these rankings. So, you know, I think those are some elements of this ranking that may be a little, that may change the way that we look at just 46th and 48th and various other rankings that we see in these National Education Association studies.
You know, I would argue that if we want to adjust for inflation, we are second from the bottom in the Southeast. Georgia, you can go to Georgia and get a $10,000 raise. You can go to South Carolina and get a 4% raise. We are only beating Mississippi when it comes to teacher pay. The National Education Association, this is data that the John Locke Foundation has used in the past when it has meshed with their talking points. This year it's embarrassing, and you know, this isn't data that we're necessarily proud of. It's not painting a rosy picture for North Carolina, but we think it is comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. It is something that all departments of public instruction in the various states have reported to our research department at the NEA. And you know, I think if you don't believe the data, go talk to a North Carolina teacher. They're working 2 jobs. It takes 15 years for them to make $40,000 a year. We have about 15% of our workforce is making below $33,000 a year in North Carolina. And these are teachers. These are folks with bachelor's degrees who are teaching our most valuable resource, children. And, you know, just talk to your neighborhood teacher. They'll tell you the truth about the rankings.
Terry, Senator Berger has a bill out, Reform Part 2 essentially, is short term. It does have some possibilities of changing how teachers are paid, and I think you're a supporter of that as well, right?
Yeah, well, you know, this really takes a wait-and-see approach to the issue of merit pay or performance pay. The bill recognizes that the state right now is developing a teacher performance metric, a sort of way to judge how teachers are performing. And once that is finished, I think the idea is to use that instrument developed by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to gauge just how teachers are performing and then reward those who definitely excel in the classroom according to the metrics established by the state. So I think that's a good approach. The previous approach was to let local school districts to decide, and that's a little too variable, I think. There are school districts who will not put a whole lot of effort into trying to find a merit pay or performance pay system that truly rewards the best teachers. So I think that this is a good approach.
What do you think? I mean, how are teachers feeling about this?
You know, for the most part, you may have some agreement between Dr. Stoops and I on this. We don't think that going to the local level and having 115 different systems is going to work. I think we both agree that testing we don't need more testing in the public schools. One of the things my educators talked about at their convention this past weekend is they don't want to be tied to a test score. There are multiple factors that go into a child's education. There are multiple factors that go into a teacher's performance. We don't want to be tied down. We don't want to have teachers just teaching to the test in order to get a raise. We like this wait-and-see approach. We have some input at the Department of Public Instruction over on the House side. Speaker Tillis is listening to teachers. I will say this, though, Tim, is I talked to a teacher last week, Rich Nixon in Johnston County, 34-year teacher. He's lived through 3 merit pay plans that the General Assembly has passed. Every time they stop paying the bonus or they stop paying the performance pay, but they always keep what is required of the teachers. Right now, we're doing the ABCs of education. I haven't gotten an ABC bonus in 4 years, but we're still doing those tests. So my teachers are a little bit, they're skeptical, and I think you could understand why.
Okay. Guys, tenure is another huge issue. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I hope you guys will come back and we'll take on tenure by itself because I'm sure we could take up 7-8 minutes easy on that topic. Good to see you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
All right.